Hulu's Little Fires Everywhere finished this week with its finale, so I thought I would create one of Mia's most iconic art pieces from this series in my own way. I had to change it up a bit because I didn't have access to the same resources that she did. The one in the show is very big, and I didn't have big enough paper for that. She also uses a photograph that she took on film, and I don't have any film, and I don't have a printer as well, so I had to think of another thing to do. So mine is going to be an acrylic painting. I did it black and white just like the photograph, and instead of using Elena or Reese Witherspoon's character, I decided to do a self-portrait to change it up a bit even more. I'm kind of doing a very similar sort of thing, it's just on a lot smaller scale. For this painting I wanted to keep it quite kind of stylized. I didn't want too much detail, so I used two kind of quite big brushes, a chisel brush and a pointed brush, just to, you know, make sure I could get some detail around the eyes in particular, but I didn't want a really rendered drawing to sort of emulate the film look of the photograph that's used in the show. It's been quite a while since I've actually painted a black and white portrait, so that was actually quite fun and a bit of a challenge because you have to focus just on tone, you don't have colours. But it's quite cool actually, and I'm really happy with how it turned out in the end. I thought I'd give a bit of my opinion on the show, although first I must confess I haven't read the book, but I have ordered the book and the book's just arrived, so I've literally read like the first chapter. Sorry, don't come for me. I loved the show, I loved the TV show. I think Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington are amazing as always, and just on the whole, like, the acting I thought was really strong, and this is definitely going to be like at the Golden Globes next year. This is going to be heavily nominated. It'll be a bit like the morning show this year, you know, with like Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon, and particularly all the scenes between Pearl and Mia, like Lexi Underwood and Kerry Washington, were just awesome. There was so much kind of like tension and emotion. For not knowing what the show was going to be about, because I hadn't read the book, I really enjoyed it, and I'm actually quite glad that apparently it's quite different from the book, so that's good, because then I can, you know, read the book and compare. It's probably quite controversial, but I quite like watching the film or the TV show before the book. Oh no, oh god, everyone's going to think that's really bad. But I quite like that. So yeah, really enjoyed the show. And I thought best way to sort of like celebrate its finishing, oh, that makes it sound like I didn't enjoy it, like commiserate, no, that's worse. Because it's finished, I decided I would recreate some of Mia's artwork, because she creates some pretty cool stuff in the series, and this is probably like one of the most iconic. Once I'd finished the painting, I needed to split it up into strips. In the show, they stick down the photo onto larger strips of paper, so there's a bit of a border on each strip, but I didn't have any big enough paper. I painted on the biggest paper that I had. I also was slightly limited in the size. I think there's about 18 strips in the photograph that they did, and so I wanted to keep it somewhat similar, so I decided to split them into 1-inch strips, so that's 20 overall. So they're quite thin, but I don't know, I think that worked quite well. I then needed to sort out how I was going to suspend them. So I was actually watching the scene from the show. It's in episode 4, the spider web. So I could see how she did it, because I really wanted to try and accurately replicate what it is that she did. Although it was quite hard to tell at some points, but I started by creating kind of hole punches in the top of each strip. I then had to take the twine or the string and then sort of fold it over and loop it through, and then they sort of tied a few knots at different points along the string, so they did one that was just above the top of the strip. So I just wanted to start by attaching all of the string to the paper before I started to attach it to the branch that I'll be using. I found this branch en route of my lockdown exercise. It had a few little branches coming off it, so I just sawed them off and then did a bit of sanding just to smooth it out. Okay, and a little bit of a tip, because I should have done this, is once I'd attached all the string I should have kept them in order. I needed to keep the strips in order the whole time because it then took me ages to figure out which order they all went in so I could then hang them up in the right order. That was really dumb on my behalf. So don't do that. I then went about attaching them to the branch. Now, in the show, she uses like a paperclip for some reason, and although you can't really properly see what she actually uses the paperclip for, so I decided to use paper clips, but kind of in my own way. I just went across and tied all of the strips up in line, leaving a bit of a gap in between, but I didn't want a massive gap, just a little one in between each of the strips. I then encountered a bit of an issue, so it was quite windy. I wanted it to have a bit of kind of movement when I was taking the photos, so I kind of loosely put some thread along the back to stop it from completely kind of spiralling out of control when I'm trying to take the photo. So in the show, she just kind of has a drop cloth for the background, and so I just got a bed sheet and put it up with some light stands in the background, and then I used a couple of tripods to hold up the branch itself, and I literally just masking taped it to the tripod to keep the branch up in the air. This footage is actually being filmed on my phone, sorry for that, but I was using my camera to actually take the photographs. I then took this like tiki light thing that I had that was kind of already burnt, and it worked quite well actually, and I used that as a torch to light the edges on each side, which is what she does, although she uses 2 lighters, 1 in each hand, although I wasn't quite that pro, so I just did it on one side, then the other side, and then I started taking the photographs. Now obviously the show's is better than mine, but I'm actually really happy with how these photographs turned out. They obviously had a lot more at their disposal, especially, you know, with an art department, and I think the size that they did it at, the larger scale, I think worked really well. And because I just didn't have the size capabilities to do that, mine had to be smaller. I thought this was a good experiment to do and a little challenge to recreate art from kind of like a TV show. So let me know if there's any other TV shows or films or anything like that that you'd want me to recreate. There are other art pieces in the TV show itself, so maybe some other ones from Little Fires Everywhere would be good to create. Let me know what you think. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed it. I post art, film, photography videos every Sunday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week with another video. Bye.